Hello and welcome to Agile in US Government Part 2. This is a review of the Agile Assessment Guide. You can find it in the link below. It's from the GAO website. Let's take a look at the raw document before we get started. The document can be accessed at this site here, gao.gov. If you go there, you'll find it. And in the first part, we went over the chapters that make up this guide. And we jumped straight into Appendix 5, where a lot of what people are looking for is understanding the common Agile frameworks. So we're still yet to go through the Agile frameworks. But going back to Chapter 2 and 3, you can see there's quite a lot of information that we're going to be covering over the next number of weeks. So if you want to get these videos when they come out, hit the bell icon, hit subscribe, and as soon as these videos are published, you'll be able to join. So we're still in Chapter 1. This is still about the overall view to Agile. We've already covered the background and the mindset, and now we're going into some more of the frameworks. Now that you're aware of the Agile Manifesto, which, by the way, is well covered here, and I'll just show you the narrative about the Agile Manifesto. I'm going to read a little bit of it for you before we get started today. And it reads, while some versions of incremental development were being used as early as 1950s, the Agile approach was articulated in 2001 by a group of 17 software developers that call themselves the Agile Alliance. In February 2001, the Alliance released the Agile Manifesto, in which they declared, we are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we've come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a plan. The Alliance added that while they recognize the value in the second part of each statement, for example, processes and tools, they saw more value in the first part. So I want to accentuate this word here for you. This word over has been misconstrued in many a publication and many a dialogue. The word over should not be mistaken for the word instead of. It does not read individuals and interactions instead of processes and tools. No, it doesn't read that. This is to call your attention to the fact that the stuff on the right, the processes and tools, the comprehensive documentation, contract negotiation, following a plan, they all have their place. However, in the world of Agile, this gives more value. And it's all about people. If you take a look at these values, you'll also find these are in direct reference to people, individuals and interactions, customer collaboration. And why do we want to deliver working software or working product anyway? And why do we want to respond to change? It's all about humans. It's all about people. So that is extremely important as we cover this world of Agile. So jumping into what we have today, our first framework or method, if you will, is DevOps. DevOps methods combine both development and operations, and hence the word DevOps is a sandwich of the two words. Prior to DevOps, a typical Agile team would have been responsible for the software from requirement to deployment, with an operations team being responsible for the support of the software after the deployment. DevOps reduces the barrier between development and operations by combining them, thus delivering software quickly and ensuring its high quality by using the same team. The rationale is that if the developers are also responsible for the support, they may have more of an incentive to create reliable code. In other words, they're not going to toss questionable objects over the wall. Instead, they're going to make sure that what they deliver is what they can maintain. In DevOps, the development and operations team collaborate. The developers may also be responsible for operation, or there could be two separate teams that have open communication. Regardless of the particular configuration, teams should be made to feel ownership of the entire software lifecycle. The driving force of DevOps is to create frequent small releases. In order to do this, DevOps teams frequently adopt several of the principles listed in Table 19. Let's go to Table 19. So the principle, automation of processes, standardized environment, microservices, and monitoring. Let's take a look at these really quick. Automation of processes. DevOps teams try to release software as frequently as possible which requires automated testing and development. In other words, continuous integration and continuous delivery. Standardized environment. Many issues of interoperability arise when new code does not work in the operations environment. Since the DevOps team develops the software and troubleshoots bugs in the operations environment, the developers become more familiar with this environment. Standardizing the environment helps with these interoperability issues. Microservices. In order to push frequent releases, the DevOps team uses an architecture comprised of microservices, small decoupled components that ideally work independently of the other software components. And lastly, monitoring. Since DevOps teams are responsible for support and operations, the team should be monitoring the software, the operational software. The frequent releases can help the team isolate and pinpoint which software has an issue. Moving on, the next one is Discipline Agile. And if you keep your ear close to the ground, you know that PMI did recently purchase Discipline Agile. The Discipline Agile framework scales Agile methods with the intent of addressing the full IT product delivery process, from program initiation to development into production. I want to make one thing very clear here. When we take a look at the frameworks we discussed previously, such as Scrum on day one, we also talked about Kanban on day one. We also talked about the sandwich of methods to give you Scrumban. These are all at the team level. But when we move into Discipline Agile, this is looked at as a scaling approach. Discipline Agile is a hybrid process that adopts and tailors strategies from a number of frameworks. Specifically, DA adopts strategies from Scrum, XP, Agile Modeling, Agile Unified Process, and Kanban. Discipline Agile is goal-driven, emphasizing the delivery lifecycle and how a product can provide a solution rather than being an independent product. Let's take a look at some of the roles and responsibilities. In Table 20 of Discipline Agile, we have stakeholder, product owner, team member, team lead, architecture owner. Stakeholder provides requirements either as part of the team or through a team representative in order to inform user stories. Does that sound familiar? The narrative of someone you would expect to be the PO, but no, we have the PO separately here. So it reads, stakeholders include 4 distinct subgroups: customers who actually use the system, principals, decision makers who pay for the system, partners who make the system work in the environment with other existing systems, and inside developers. And then we have the product owner, separate. So stakeholder, one entity, one role; product owner, another one. Product owner clarifies details and maintains list of work items that the team needs to implement, represents work of an agile team to stakeholder community. So sounds very similar to the traditional role that we are used to in Scrum. So the role of the product owner in Scrum is very similar to what we see here in Discipline Agile. Then we have team member, team lead, and architecture owner. We do not have Scrum Master, but going straight to team member, this is an individual doing the work, performing analysis, testing, evaluation, design, programming, planning, estimation, many more activities. And then we have team lead, person who facilitates communication and empowers team members to self-optimize their processes. Sounds very much like the Scrum Master. And then we have architecture owner, makes system architecture decisions for the team and ensures that the solution is integrated and tested on a regular basis. The individual in the team lead role on smaller agile teams may also fill the role of architecture owner. And that is DA in a nutshell. Remember, these are all cursory overviews. In addition to these primary roles that you see here, Discipline Agile identifies secondary roles for specialist, independent tester, domain expert, technical expert, and integrator. The secondary roles are not required for every team and often used when a program scales larger and may only be needed for a short period of time. Remember, I told you it's a scaling technique, so you see a little bit more overhead bandwidth, a little bit more depth. You find a smattering of roles as opposed to a simple lightweight model like Scrum that has 3 roles. This has many more than Scrum because it's for scaling. All right, let's move on to the next one. The next one is DSDM. In full, it spells Dynamic Systems Development Method. Created in 1994, the DSDM method brings control and quality to software development by focusing on transparency and communication. The framework, which can be used to scale Agile for larger programs with multiple teams, is intended to be used for management of the full life cycle of a program. DSDM has a defined four-phase process that covers the entire life cycle of a program: feasibility, foundations, evolutionary, development, and deployment. The team is sorted by areas of interest: business, technical, and management. The roles to support these areas of interest are categorized into program, development, and supporting roles. Each specific role has defined responsibilities within the DSDM process. For example, the technical coordinator provides technical leadership at the program level. DSDM promotes certain practices such as facilitated workshops, prioritizing work, and modeling, among others, to facilitate the program process and align with DSDM principles. Specifically, facilitated workshops are used to help a team reach consensus on the requirements for a deliverable. Facilitated workshop, just to go a little bit off this document here, you do recall that this is bringing together cross-functional teams and helping them reach consensus. That's really what this is talking about. In addition to prioritizing work, DSDM uses the Moscow technique: must have, should have, could have, would like, or won't have, in which work is categorized as must have, should have, could have, or won't have this time. Just remember, there are other variants of that. So you could have the W meaning would in some instances. This triad allows the team to focus on the highest priority work. Finally, DSDM promotes modeling, visual representation of a program as a way to increase communication with the team. Now, let's take a look at some of the principles used in DSDM. Principle: focus on the business need, deliver on time, collaborate, never compromise quality, build incrementally from firm foundations, develop iteratively, communicate continuously and clearly, and demonstrate control. Let's take a look at them one by one. Focus on the business need. The team understands the business needs and priorities. There is continuous business commitment throughout development. Deliver on time. Teams time box their work in iterations, allowing them to always deliver on time while flexing the scope of features. With iterations, the team should be able to have a predictable delivery. Collaborate. The entire team, including stakeholders and business representatives, collaborate for better understanding and shared ownership of a program. This is supported by empowering team members to make decisions in areas they represent. Never compromise quality. The level of quality is agreed on before development starts with acceptance criteria. Testing is integrated throughout development, done early and continuously. Build incrementally from firm foundations. Understand the business problem and plan the proposed solution. Teams should design an overarching solution first in order to lay a firm foundation and build a solution from this foundation with increments, providing for feedback and routine reassessment of the program. So as you're going through this, I hope you're filtering to find what are the similarities with some of the other frameworks, because it sounds very, very similar. One of the things I love about DSDM, which we don't show here, is what I call the inverted triangle. In other words, we call it the iron triangle on steroids, for lack of a better term. Let's take a quick look at how the DSDM method has posed this in this very well-known view of the difference between traditional, as you can see, and agile. So in traditional, we have fixed scope, we have flexible schedule and budget. But in the world of agile, what I like how the DSDM portrays it, it flips a triangle on its head and we see scope now being flexible. And that is one of the key tenets of agile: flexible scope. Welcome changing requirements, even late in development. Remember, as I often say, requirements beget scope. So if you welcome changing requirements even late, then guess what? You're allowing scope to change, you're allowing scope to morph. And that is one of the tenets of agile. And that's why agile is used for complexity, to manage complex problems, complex endeavors. And I find this inverted triangle to be a really great way of explaining agile to individuals. Let's move on. So going back to our table, develop iteratively. Iterative development allows for timely feedback through frequent demonstrations and reviews. Communicate continuously and clearly. DSDM encourages informal face-to-face communication and daily stand-ups. Additional modeling, prototyping, and workshops can increase communication throughout the team. Demonstrate control. In order to demonstrate control, the program manager should measure and report plans and progress. The program manager should be assessing the program according to the business needs. And that is DSDM. Now, for today, we have one more that we'll take a look at. It's one that you've probably heard a lot about. It's XP, Extreme Programming. It advocates frequent releases in short iterative development cycles. This approach promotes team productivity and introduces checkpoints where various customer or stakeholder requirements can be introduced, refined, and adopted. Ken Beck originally developed XP while working for Chrysler Corporation in 1996. He published and expanded on the method in Extreme Programming Explained. XP does not prescribe formal roles and responsibilities to teams. Instead, it relies on teams that are self-organized, cross-functional, and include the customer. XP has several best practices, including small releases, simple design, and pair programming, amongst others. Like other Agile frameworks, XP attempts to reduce the cost of changes and requirements by having multiple short development iterations with feedback loops to continually refine customer requirements rather than one single long cycle. This approach focuses on coding and helps to ensure that team members have a complete understanding of business requirements early in the process. Activities performed during every XP software development cycle include planning, managing, designing, coding, and testing, which are further described in Table 23. Let's take a look at Table 23. In Table 23, we can see the activities and description. Planning involves writing user stories, release planning and dividing programs into smaller iterations. Managing involves the team operating in an open workspace at a sustainable pace, participating in stand-up meetings, and continually measuring their velocity. Designing. Teams focus on keeping the design simple, only adding functionality when needed, and refactoring, among other things. Coding. In XP, all code is produced using pair programming, meaning two developers create the code together with the intent to increase the quality of the code. In addition, unit tests are written first, standards are used for all code, and new code is integrated often. XP also practices the idea of collective ownership, meaning all team members have a responsibility for the code base and can make changes to improve it. Testing. All code should have a unit test, and the code must pass all unit tests before it is released. Acceptance tests are run frequently, and all test results are published. And of course, the concept of user stories is often associated with Kent Beck. And that, my friends, is all we will be taking a look at for today. I encourage you to go on down to the website. Go to the GAO website, download the Agile Assessment Guide. Hey, it's a great use of taxpayer dollars. I know that the individuals who worked on this on the outside were volunteers. A massive shout out to those individuals, including my buddy, Scrum Bob, who introduced me to this. I was quite pleasantly surprised when he introduced me to this secret document. And I say secret document because a lot of folks don't know that this document is out there. It is loaded with a lot of good examples. One of the things I'm just waiting to get to is the myth surrounding Agile. That is going to be a fun episode. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. I look forward to speaking to you in another episode soon. Take care. Bye for now.